I don't know how much you followed in the press over the last few days, but on Wednesday we announced something that's actually a world first, and it's not a technology world first, it's really a business thing. And what we announced is a true utility-based on-premise storage on demand offering. Okay, it's a bit of a mouthful, but just let me explain. So if you just take a step back in the big cloud picture, and I think no one can argue that Amazon knows what it's talking about when they come to public cloud, and they've been the biggest advocates of saying the fundamental reason that people consider clouds is to achieve agility. Okay, so that's pretty obvious, you've all heard that before. What they do is they define agility as being a resourcing model where you can add resources on demand, you can give them back when you're no longer using them, you can pay for them as you go, the costs are variable, etc., etc. And if you contrast that with how people buy storage or lease storage today, it's the polar opposite of that. Because when you buy storage, you're committing to storage up front to hopefully last you the next number of years. When you lease it, you're locking yourself into typically today an average lease term is 3 to 5 years. There's nothing on demand or resource related about that. You lock yourself into a fixed configuration for a number of years that you really hope you got right. So that's the issue with how people buy and lease storage. So what we're doing is we're offering a system, and really with very minimal terms and conditions, and the basic way that it works is we're service level based. So a customer signs up for platinum, gold, silver or bronze, what we call performance levels. So obviously going from faster to less fast. And each one is charged out at a particular number of cents per gigabyte per month. Okay? So we go out and we deliver some chunk of storage to them, fairly, a base capacity, and then we deliver additional buffer capacity, which I'll talk about in a moment. And at the back end, we leverage InfoSight. So the same stuff that you've been seeing, but another use for it on the business side. And we use InfoSight to monitor what the customer's doing with it. And there are really two things that we do with InfoSight. The first thing is each month, we look back at the previous month, so it's a post-paid service, and we look at the utilization from the previous month, and the customer gets invoiced based on the actual number of gigabytes that they used the previous month. That can go up because they used more, or it can come down because they used less.
Is the price on a per transfer basis or a per storage basis? So it's how much data is transferred?
Per gigabyte stored per month. So this is on-premise.
Okay.
So it's on-premise, that means in their data center or their colo or connected to their cloud service, whatever they do with the storage, but we charge it out at a per gig per month rate. So that can go up, that can go down just depending on their usage. And then we also use InfoSight to monitor when they need more capacity and when they need more performance. So the idea is we're a hardware, we have hardware constraints. We're not a software utility that can be controlled entirely in software, but what we do is we deliver ahead of the game. So as we see the customer trending into the zone of that they're going to hit their buffer, we pre-ship their next increment. The next increment could be more capacity or more performance or both. That gets delivered, they don't pay a penny for it, and as they start to consume it, as they grow into it, we start billing them again based on the per gig per month of that entity that they use. And it really is unique in that we allow them to go all the way up, we allow them to come all the way down. Really the only terms, there's a minimum capacity of 40 terabytes, which is our starting point, and there's a 1-year term after which it goes month by month.
Can I mention one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not first.
Okay.
Teijal started this earlier this year.
So if you, again, I'm not intimately familiar with what Teijal's doing, but it's termed a lease. Ours is a pure OPEX.
Theirs is not termed as a lease, it's termed utility pricing. Okay.
So I just read, the only thing I read is theirs is a press release where they actually use the word lease. But I
think EMC has got something here too. I'm not sure at the high end, maybe VMAX.
So that's the one. So EMC has something called OpenScale, NetApp has something called On-Demand Advantage, and they are completely different to this. So what they work as, and this is sort of the important thing, the way that those work, they're what's called a tiered or a stepped lease. So,
Gavin, you can go 2 slides.
oh, there are slides. Okay. So let me just shoot down. So that's actually, so here are the slides from EMC, NetApp and EMC. Okay, so the 2 boxes there. And the first thing is they're optimized to fix a procurement problem. So everyone knows this in an enterprise. To buy your next increment of storage, you have to raise requests, get approvals, place POs on your reseller, wait for the storage to arrive, and so on. So what they're doing is they're streamlining that process by building something that's what's called a stepped lease. And the way it works, and if you look at, again, the 2 boxes on the left, you can kind of see it in the graphic, that there's an initial negotiation between that vendor and the customer around a base configuration, and that might be a particular storage array with certain software and support services and certain amount of capacity, and that gets locked into a 3 to 5 year lease. That's just a lock-in, or it can be purchased. Okay. What the vendor does is they deliver the buffer capacity, which is the next shelf that can be attached to that array, and that's charged out at a different rate. So you have your base commit, then you have your buffer at a different rate. And as you grow into the buffer and you hit a threshold, whether that's 50 or 75%, as soon as you hit that threshold, that rolls back into the lease, and that becomes your next commit. So you can see all the steps, they roll back in, and that becomes your commit for the term of the lease, the long term, the 3 to 5 years. So you can go up, you just can't come back down through that.
So another issue that I've had in previous jobs when I've looked at these type of lease options is that if you take the one that you've got for EMC, those different bars that you've got, so if I was to add an extra shelf 6 months into it, then the maintenance and what have you on that shelf hangs off the end of the original purchase, and we couldn't co-term maintenance and things like that, and it became really awkward for us financially to be able to lease or whatever with that model. Do you suffer from that?
No, so look, spot on. And you see, the goal here is, and it sounds like an ugly word, but the goal is lock-in, right? Because you don't want the customer to leave in those models. What we're doing, and this chart really, I mean, that may or may not be a realistic growth or plummet pattern, but our contract is a 12-month term and month by month, and that's it. That we've really, we piloted this for a long time, and we really thought it through how to do this, and we looked at all those options and everything, and we really settled on something that could be explained in that 1 minute, not the big long contract. So it is a true utility offering. It reverts to month by month after 12 months. Even in the 12 months, they can still go up or down. Okay?
You're basically over-provisioning the array for the customer, but not passing the over-provisioning charges on to the customer? Is that
right? And doing it ad infinitum. So what we're doing is we're really ensuring. That's why I said we're under constraints of hardware. So at some point we've got to move boxes from here to there. But what we're doing in that process is making sure that there's always enough headroom for them to continue growing if they are growing, and then we bill them for it only as they grow.
Right, but this isn't a managed service.
Mainframe type deal.
It's a little bit. Mainframes tend to do it though with switches where they turn off CPU.
Right.
We see the thing that there are 2 things that make this possible for us. Okay, the first one is, and I've already talked about it, is InfoSight. So we have the analytics to bill and to monitor and to figure out what to ship when, and that's not just capacity, but additional arrays, additional performance to cluster in. Okay. The second thing is we have modular scalability. So non-disruptively, we can grow a cluster from sub 8 terabytes all the way up to the petabyte class system in a single image. Okay. And the idea here is we don't have to deliver a monolithic, a refrigerator-sized $1 million worth of kit on day one that's only got 40 or 50 terabytes and figure out how to make our money on it as it grows and as it fills up to a point eventually where it might become profitable. What we're doing is we're delivering and managing 3U increments each time. And that's, again, just from a pure technology perspective, it lends itself really well. The other point is, we've got a really strong track record selling into some fairly significant sized service providers and enterprises that are building clouds, and our feature set maps and really lends itself to the types of things that they're doing. So really what we're doing, it's not that this is the only way you'll be able to acquire Nimble storage. This is just a choice that we're now offering our customers, and we're saying you can buy it and that's fine, or you can rent it if you have more of an unpredictable growth pattern and you want to align your payments to exactly the capacity that you need, not go through that normal 3-year buying cycle of buying capacity up front and hoping you got it right.
Now, on a previous slide, didn't it say like 40 terabyte minimum?
Correct.
That's the floor you're...
Yeah, and it's really just a factor of that. That's the type of customer that starts to become interesting to do this.
And let's say a customer did say, all right, we don't want to rent anymore, we want to buy it. Are they getting like a credit for what they've already put into it?
No, so it actually, so one of the things that we've done here is, and this is, you can thank the US, I know way too much about US accounting than I care to want to ever know. But the problem is, if we offer a buyout or a long-term commit or anything, then from the whole treatment of this becomes a lease, even though it's a rental, it actually becomes treated financially as a lease, and that has all kinds of negative implications for us and the customer.
Yeah, the operating versus capital lease issue?
Yeah. And so really what we're doing is there's no buyout, there's no long term. It's this idea of the commit is a base 12 months at 40 terabytes. That's it.
What's your, you have to make money, right? I assume?
We do. We're not a charity. We're not a charity.
So if you have a 1-year minimum commitment, and then the customer can say we're done.
Right.
So theoretically, you're going to make your money in that first year.
No, maybe not.
No.
So look, Rod and the
you have a risk potentially that
sure.
Now, if every single customer at the end of the year said we're not going to do this, you guys
sure.
lost a bunch of money.
Sure.
What for you is the break even in general? I mean, obviously it's going to depend on usage and stuff like that, but I'm sure you've done the math.
We have. It's a function of growth. Right, and how long they keep it for. But just to your point, and this is sort of no secret, customers love Nimble. So we've got but I say that in the sense all that InfoSight data, we watch exactly what customers do with arrays, how they use them, how they grow them, how they add workloads, and how they buy the next one, and so we got a pretty good. Of course, it's risky, but we also know that once they use it, right, they're very likely to continue.
Well, I'm not saying everybody's going to quit using you at the end of the year. That's not even. Don't even read that into that. And I am a big fan of models like this. I was a big fan of operating leases for a long time as well when I was a CIO, for the same reason, because it was just like I just wanted to rent stuff and not have to keep it. I wonder, are there similar? If you must have similar margins in this at the end of the day, you're probably right, or is it better?
I think you'll find it's net neutral to our business.
Yeah.
And that's really the goal.
Are there plans to, like, at the end of a certain time frame, if the customer has decided to continue going with this plan and, speeds and feeds have increased, will you upgrade their controllers to match what's the new gold level or whatever?
And so it's really, it's kind of absolutely is the simple answer. The other thing is customers are going to keep us honest on this, right? Because there is no commit. At some point, if someone else is offering this stuff better and cheaper and faster, right? Yeah. So that's probably the best way of assuring customers that is
that customer, the asset that's at that customer's site will show up in InfoSight as that customer's asset. So they're going to see projections about capacity requirements and cache utilization and CPU. And if it needs a CPU upgrade because that's what they've done to that array over time by adding more load, then they'll get the CPU upgrade or another system to add into the cluster or the group to balance that load. But we have to do that. I mean, that's the commit.
Not to be too focused on money, right? But how do the partners, resellers get into this bigger? Is it something you do? Do you cut them a vig when they get this done, or does all the money come to Nimble?
You're asking how the resellers work?
No, well,
We're in this
say
model.
say you have the system in a client location
Right.
where you've already sort of the upgrade hardware assets in there. When they want to turn it on, does the reseller who gets you into that business still get
Paid?
Did they get
Yeah.
cost?
So the way we do it, it's we pay the reseller based on our monthly revenue stream. So there's it's designed. I mean, Nimble is we're 100%, as close as we can be to 100% through the channel business. So this model works in the same way.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So any other questions now? So anyway, I've skipped a whole lot of slides, but this whole idea is that what we're doing is we're bringing an on-premise solution that's paid for in cloud-like ways, but under your control and your data center, with your data. And this is this sort of data sovereignty thing. But what we're doing is in the cloud theme, we're starting to build more and more of capabilities and infrastructure to satisfy customers that are using us in cloud-like ways. So I'm going to call up Mike McLaughlin, who's going to do some demos of our cloud integration framework.
Gavin, I'm surprised you don't have some sort of and I'll call it an IO surcharge, where not only do you charge on capacity, but you also charge on data transferred in or out. I know there's a lot of variability there, and it's very hard to estimate stuff like that.
But the device is on premises.
What we are doing, there are 4 performance levels.
I saw that, the bronze, silver.
So they're priced differently. So that the platinum is a higher overall aggregate number of IOPS per terabyte, and that's charged at a higher rate than the bronze, which has a lower number.
Yeah.
But
those tiers are basically the controllers that are in it.
The controllers, the ratio of the controllers, the ratio of the amount of flash, and what the ratio is of capacity to controller.
Okay.
Because remember, we can go deep.
Sure.
The aggregate IOPS drops. The more capacity you have on the same controller.
Where does pricing start for 40 terabytes of the lowest performance tier?
So unfortunately, I'm not going to answer that one.
Okay.
It's designed to be very cost effective compared to, again, anything else that you could do in this realm.